Do you have a brain? Okay, how many? I think some of you will say 1, and others will add the spinal cord and arrive at 2. What if I tell you that humans actually have 3 brains? Will it be true or false? That's really true. To coordinate the intestinal wall contraction, we need a whole separate brain and its army of 100 million neurons. That's why the bowel keeps functioning even when it has no connection with the cerebrum. And now, fire up your brain and nope, not this one, but the one in your head. I suggest you take part in my intellectual quiz. Can you guess if the users of Apple and Android have different brains? Why do we look for faces on inanimate objects? How to erase unnecessary memories? And how well does your brain know itself? If you guess that the fact about the third brain is true, you already have 1 point. What can be scarier than someone seeing your browser history? Only if someone manages to take a look through your brain history. Guess which of the facts on this subject is false? What can other people see by taking a peek at your brain? Being in love, prints, or pain? If you're secretly listening to Anyone by Justin Bieber on repeat, your brain MRI scans will reveal that you are in love. Brain regions associated with pleasure are more active when people are in love. The scans will show lighting up of the areas rich with dopamine, the feel-good hormone. However, the police have no right to ask to see your brain, though hypothetically they could. If you look at the brain, you'll see it has the same unique pattern as fingerprints. But if you poke someone's brain with your finger, you won't see it's in pain. Even though pain is processed in the brain, there are no pain receptors in the brain itself, so surgeons can perform brain surgery even when the patient is awake. Until a few years ago, your answers to the quiz would be very different because the modern human brain has changed considerably. Guess which of these changes is false? Our brain is afraid of objects that resemble humans. GPS is bad for taxi drivers' brains. The users of Apple and Android have different brains. Researchers in London scanned the brains of local taxi drivers. The ones that drove through the streets using their memory were found to experience an increase in the hippocampus. This part of the brain is responsible for short-term memory, and it's also where short-term memories are turned into long-term memories, whereas the drivers following the GPS had the opposite. That part of their brains sort of shrunk. It turns out that GPS destroys your innate sense of direction, a skill that took thousands of years for our ancestors to develop. And the following differences were formed in a very short period. Recently, scientists have found that the brains of Apple users are different from those who use Android. MRI shows that Apple products stimulate a God spot in the brain. This spot is the brain area activated in believers' brains at seeing religious imagery. Apparently, obsession with craving the latest iPhone is what the brain perceives as a worship of the highest power.
Father, Son,
and Apple's iPhone. And pareidolia, that is, the ability of people to see faces on inanimate objects, brings people not fear, but joy. When you spot an angry pepper, a smiling lighter, or an apple with an owl's face, your brain is proud of itself. Back in the day, facial recognition used to be a survival mechanism. Our ancestors tried to spot predators or enemies from other tribes who hunted from ambush. Most modern humans don't live in the jungle, where a cheetah can sneak around in the bushes. So when you look at the washing machine, instead of getting scared, you think, "Ha! The poor fellow is dizzy." The brain is extremely fond of solving visual puzzles, and when you deal with them, you feel terrific about yourself. So our brain's facial recognition option is as good as a computer's one. But nevertheless, which one is better? Which of the following statements is false? The brain can store more information than a computer. It's also better than any computer search engine. But with all that, it can't warn of memory overflow. Yeah, the brain is still far superior to the most powerful computers ever made. Recent studies show that the brain has enough memory to store the entire internet. You'll never see a window with the notification that your brain memory is full because it's limitless. Despite unlimited storage of everything and anything in your brain case, the brain can still be overloaded. But the worst part is that it's impossible to know how much information you keep, and even more so, you can't sort or delete it on your own. All you can do is go to sleep. Indeed, it's during REM sleep that the brain filters the information received during the day and removes unnecessary secondary information. Another downside to such an enormous data warehouse is that you're unlikely to quickly find the things you urgently need in your brain. After all, dredging your memory banks is not the same as extracting a file from a folder. Your brain needs to recreate and rethink that data. And it will be anything but the perfect copy of the original. The most important thing for your brain is not to freeze entirely, because in that case, there might be an error. The researchers found that men would rather electrocute themselves than sit still in a room alone with their thoughts. And it's not surprising, because sometimes the brain can fail and drive us crazy. Try to guess which of these brain failures doesn't exist. False memories, transforming 50% of thoughts into negativity, or when your brain makes you think your loved one is an alien. Our brain is a very insecure memory holder. Over time, it can get filled with moments that never happened. The distinction between memory and imagination in the brain becomes blurred, and a person starts to believe that, for example, they were kidnapped by a UFO, or that their partner is an alien. This disorder has a name: Capgras delusion. The brain of people suffering from this disorder make them think that their loved ones are imposters, doppelgangers, robots, or creatures from other planets. But even if you're mentally healthy, your brain will still try to intimidate you. According to the Laboratory of Neuroimaging at the University of Southern California, the average brain generates 48.6 thoughts per minute. That's about 70,000 per day. And 70% of that mind chatter is negative, pessimistic, and frightening thoughts. That's even more than half. So if after my videos of the impending apocalypses and comet falls, you get overwhelmed with negative and frightening thoughts, it's not my fault. That's all your brain's work. Now, calculate how many facts you managed to guess. If you scored 5 points, you're Krang from Ninja Turtles, because his IQ is 20 times higher than that of any human being. Only Megamind could score 4 points. You have a genius-level intellect, but alas, you're weak without your gadgets. If you got 3, you're a young genius Jimmy Neutron. You can devise brilliant inventions for this world, but then you'll probably have to save the world from what you created. 2 points makes you brain. Your brain works well, but it's only capable of mean things most of the time. 1 point goes to the android body, which only serves as a shell and sort of transport for Krang. Share your results in the comments. If you scored less than 3 points, don't get upset. Watch all the videos on my channel, and your brain cells will light up.